The Shooting Range. In this episode, Pages of History, Stolid Pilot, Arsenal, Second Generation Harrier, and Metal Beasts, Urban Leopard. As soon as the Leopard 2 was added to War Thunder, it gained fame as an extra dangerous predator on the battlefields. It has great armor, good mobility, and high firepower. And most of these advantages are found on any member of the family, from the 2A4 to the Swedish STRV-122. A new Leopard has recently become the head of the German feline family, Modification PSO, one specifically designed for urban combat. Its main caliber is a two-plane stabilized 120mm gun with elevation angles between -9 and +20 degrees. There's also a coaxial and a pintle-mounted machine gun. The engine and transmission compartment is in the rear. The driver sits in the front, and 3 more crew members are in the turret. Extra protection is provided by blocks of composite armor on the sides, and there's also 18 smoke grenade launchers. The new German top isn't the first ever urban combat-ready MBT in our game. This idea was also the driving factor for the Abrams Tusk kit, for instance. When we talked about it, we mentioned that opting for additional protection over mobility is an individual choice for each player. Practice shows that most of you actually prefer more survivability. In the case of this MBT, though, you won't be faced with a hard choice, since it sacrifices no mobility. The new tank is equipped with one of the most powerful tank engines in the game, totaling 1,630 horsepower. With an advanced transmission, it can propel the tank to 68 kilometers an hour moving forward, and achieve up to 33 kilometers an hour in reverse. This should cover almost all of your combat needs. The Leopard's composite screens, much like the Abrams ERA blocks, do not guarantee immunity to finned rounds that are so widespread in the top tier. They can, however, save you from HE and weaker stray rounds like those fired by autocannons or lower-tier vehicles. The gun should also be familiar to our players. It can't boast a long barrel like on the 2A6, but a longer barrel doesn't necessarily mean a noticeable increase in penetration. You'll still need to aim for vulnerabilities on enemy MBTs. The Leopard's main caliber is pretty decent for top ranks, and we mean both the 2A5 and the PSO. Besides, there's some consolation in the fact that a shorter barrel is harder to damage. The main flaw of the top Leopard is still the subpar night vision devices. It could surely use some higher resolution thermals. Finally, there's one nice little feature on this new model. There's a large caliber machine gun on the roof. Should you encounter a chopper, a light machine such as an anti-aircraft vehicle, or even a solid fence, you'll find it super useful. How do you describe a typical phlegmatic person? Well, here's a take. There once lived a pilot called Stanley Winfield Swede Vegtasa, or Vetussa. It depends on where you're from. Vegtasa is the American way, since this person was born and raised in Montana, USA. Vetussa is the Swedish pronunciation, and this is where his family's from, hence the nickname. Anyway, when Stanley was assigned to USS Yorktown in 1937, the aircraft carrier crew couldn't comprehend how he'd become a Navy pilot with that temperament. He seemed to never be in a rush. Nothing in the world could get on his nerves, and he flew much the same way. For instance, he could land his Vindicator and later a Dauntless on a rocky deck in stormy winds with a poker face, as if not realizing how risky it was. But then the war came. The Battle of the Coral Sea finally made Stanley's fellow sailors realize there was a catch. American dive bombers were to attack the Japanese Shoho aircraft carrier, and that put all the pilots on edge. Flying straight at that monster and its escort full of anti-air guns, that was certain death. Everyone tried to finish their attack as soon as possible and pull away from all those whishing tracers and whooshing zeros. Some scored hits, some missed, some caught on fire and sank. The sky was shuddering with engine roar and explosions of AA rounds. Meanwhile, Vejtesa simply dived almost to the water surface, hammered a bomb right into the wooden deck of the carrier, leveled his aircraft, and left. Later, when he was submitting his report, it looked something like this. Well, there was this carrier. I dropped a bomb on it. It exploded, and I left. Well, that's a fairly accurate description, no argument here. At first, everyone thought it was just some mad luck. But on the very next day, Stanley downed 3 zeros in a single flight, using a Dauntless no less. His mission was to cover Allied vessels from Japanese torpedo bombers. The bombers did come, and brought a strong fighter escort with them. A couple of sluggish Dauntless aircraft couldn't leave. Naturally, a battle started. Stanley's lead was knocked down in almost no time, but Stanley himself proved to be harder to get to. The Stolid lieutenant shot his first zero in a frontal attack and let 2 more pass him in a dive thanks to his skillful use of the air brakes. The outcome was almost impossible to believe, but numerous observers were there to confirm it once they came to their senses. The Japanese attack was thwarted, and Stanley Vejtesa's report was the usual, "They attacked me, I downed them." Technically correct, right? After that, Vejtesa was promoted to captain and sent to learn how to pilot a carrier-based Wildcat fighter. He was flying in a squadron of the USS Enterprise now, and distinguished himself once again. It happened during the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands on the 26th of October, 1942. In his first sortie, he managed to intercept and destroy no less than 7 Japanese aircraft, 2 Val divers, and 5 Kate torpedo bombers. Yet again, many saw it with their own eyes, and a gun camera brought back evidence in film format. We don't know what his report was that time, but we have fair reason to believe Stanley summed it up in a single sentence yet again. We could go on with the story, but let's cut it short. Stanley continued to fly and fight in World War II, later serving in Korea on a Corsair. He learned to fly a jet fighter, commanded the USS Constellation, and officially retired in 1970. Stanley Vejtesa lived to see the mature age of 98. It was never in his nature to rush, get overexcited, or make a buzz. Every update brings new precision munition carriers. A year ago, we added one of the highlights of this class, the Harrier GR7, and only recently it got a twin sibling in the Italian tree, the AV-8B Plus. Today we'd like to study the arsenal of the 2nd generation of jump jets. Let's start with air battles. Harriers cannot seriously compete with pure fighter aircraft, but they do have a few things to show in close combat. Each of the planes can carry up to 4 AIM-9M missiles, one of the best close-range AAMs in the game. Thanks to low-smoke motors, the top sidewinders often stay undetected, and coupled with a high jamming resistance, they're basically guaranteed to hit any target in the rear. Of course, you shouldn't forget the 25mm autocannons. They don't affect flight performance much, and it's always nice to have some good old lead on hand. The Harriers also have a decent stock of countermeasures for enemy attacks. The British version can use special pods usable together with anti-air missiles. You can't miss a chance to up your total flare and chaff count to 700 pieces. It's good enough for you to take a part-time job as a jammer. The same sets are the base for close air support loadouts. Don't focus on conventional bombs and rockets while using this jet. Their total load makes spawn costs pretty high, while their efficiency is highly dependent on how deeply the enemy AA is sleeping today. Ultra-low strikes in top tier are better left to supersonic strike fighters. 2nd-generation Harriers have a different forte. They're proficient in delivering high-precision strikes with laser and TV-guided munitions. Sometimes they can even do both at once. Let's start with the simpler options here. The Italian aircraft's best option is 10 GBU-12 guided bombs. By the way, this is a new record in War Thunder. There's little sense in denying yourself some frags in favor of a larger caliber. Even the fire-and-forget air-to-surface missiles, with all their convenience, are obviously worse than 10 laser bombs, especially if you remember that TV-guided munitions cost more spawn points. The best option for the British Harrier is different. We believe it's the same GBU-12 bombs, but 6 in this case. Way less than on the Italian version, but also less expensive. That's actually the reason we believe it offers the best bang for the buck. The British version can also use bombs of a larger caliber. They can come in handy on maps where enemies often clutch together in familiar positions. Just remember that even the Harrier can only take so many bombs. The larger they are, the harder it is to climb to a safe altitude. Air-to-surface missiles also have a different value for the British aircraft. They're still expensive, of course, but there are times when their convenience is simply unbeatable. What are your impressions of the second-generation Harriers? Tell us in the comments. Meanwhile, we'll answer some of your questions. The first question was sent by a player called GGO Dream. Will it be possible during an air game to change the load of secondary weapons once you've landed at your airport? Hi GGO Dream. It's only possible in air battles. Make sure your aircraft is fully repaired after you land, leave the machine, and choose a new load. Bob Thingama asks, what's the weird window thing sticking out of the PVKV M43 1963? Hey Bob, it's a plate that can be mounted near the driver's seat. Another question comes from Ethan Cotton. The glow on the planes, how's this done? Hi Ethan, it's just the formation lights. You don't need to turn them on. They do so automatically when it's dark. Ghosty writes, can you put in AWACS for top-tier jets? The AWACS would spot the enemy jets easier, and Phoenix missiles would be more useful. Hello, Ghosty. We don't believe it's an essential thing at this point. Top-tier jet fighters are currently doing a pretty good job at detecting enemies and guiding missiles. And the last comment for today was written by Spectre Plays. Why can the F-16s and the Nets only carry one external fuel tank and not two? And will the Tomcats ever receive external fuel tanks? Hi there. Creating different models of fuel tanks takes a lot of time, so we prioritize center-line drop tanks that give the pilot the widest choice of suspended armament. Naturally, adding drop tanks to all aircraft that need it is in our plans. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to work on your poker face, leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.